Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Sunday. Another episode of On the Frontlines with Christie Hutcherson. I'm so excited today because the person I'm interviewing is so funny because she's had me on her show, which is an incredible show. I absolutely love this woman. In this movement, especially from a female perspective, it's hard to find people that you actually trust, right? And this individual is somebody who I trust with my life, literally. Her and Ann Vandersteel have become, in my opinion, two of my very best dear friends. It's really hard because it's tough when you're doing what we're doing. We're uncovering truth, and we're on the battlefield, so to speak. You lose some people along the way, and it's really nice to have somebody and a team behind you that you love, that lift you up, that really have the best for you. They're not competitive with you. They want to see you succeed, and you want to see them succeed. And it's a rare in this fight that we're in. And so anyway, my guest is Mel K. Oh my God, none other than the famous, fabulous Mel K. But before we do that, I was so excited. I got to do the housekeeping stuff, right? So everybody out there, we are in a battle. Do you not understand that? This is a spiritual battle against good and evil. The evil is the cabal. It is. It was so funny. I was asked, who are they? Who are they when you talk about the cabal and you talk about the world domination takeover? Well, it's really simple. It's the elites. It's the Rockefellers. It's the Rothschilds. It's the CIA. It's all of those who are embedded and have embedded themselves into governments all over the United States, not just here in the United States, by the way, in the world. And so the deep state is who we're going to talk about today. But we're going to give you the tools that you need because, I talk all over the country. As you guys know, you follow me. We're on the front lines. We're in the trenches. And these are incredible events that happen. But it's time to actually act. And Mel and myself and Dr. Jane Ruby got together. And we said, you know what? We need to actually give tools to the American people. Practical things that they can do, because we don't have much time. And I think we understand that. We're privy to a lot of information, a lot of intelligence information that doesn't just get out there. And Mel is one of those individuals who, like myself and Ann, we really vet stuff. We really look at things hard, and we don't put it out there unless we can put our own brand on it, right? Because our reputation and our integrity is everything in what we do. And there's a lot of disinformation. Even with our own movement. We're going to talk about that today. But what you can do right now, one of the first things you can do, and I talk about this all the time, and I know Mel does as well. The power to save our nation is not in somebody else's hands. The power to save this incredible country called America is in your hands. The world literally holds right here. What you decide to do with that is going to depend on the outcome of what happens in the end of the story. The end of the story, we know who wins. God wins at the end of the day, but he doesn't tell you to sit by and do nothing. He tells you to act. So we're going to teach you and train you how to act. One of those things you can do is with your wallet. You need to purchase from patriotic companies who are American made, America first, pro-life companies, constitutional companies, those who actually defend and protect the Constitution, companies that support and defend our liberties. The military, first responders, not the higher ups in the military, because those guys are corrupt, but our everyday soldiers who are putting it on the line every day. Patriot Mobile is one of those companies. I love Patriot Mobile. I made the switch. It's where most of the Patriots make their phone calls. PatriotMobile.com/WFFA. You need to make the switch. Get off of AT&T and Verizon. I promise you won't regret it. It's the same service. You get the same great service. I've been in third world countries using my Patriot phone. It works. I promise you. Also, mypillow.com, use promo code WFFA, mypillow.com. There's no other man that I know has put his money on the line like Mike Lindell has to fight for you, the American people. Also, Patriot Switch. If you want to know about Patriot Switch, go to our website, Women Fighting for America, wffa.win. Patriot Switch, all American made products. Get off the Johnson & Johnson. Please buy them. That's what I do. I have it shipped every month to my home. I love the products. They're natural. They're organic. They're not harmful to you. They're not going to poison you like these Monsantos and Johnson & Johnson, these other countries these other companies that want to poison you, give you cancer, take you and your family down a path of illness. Make the switch. And lastly, thank you, Brighty on TV. Without Brighty on TV, I couldn't be here. I love them. Mike Adams, thank you, Brighty on TV. Go to the Brighteon store, use promo code WFFA. It lets them know that you're supporting On the Front Lines and programming like this. So again, it's in your hands. Simple little changes that you can do that will have a massive impact for eternity for this country and this nation. Thank you. So I am so excited. Mel, bring her on. Come on. She's a firecracker.
Hi there.
Hey, girlfriend.
How are you doing? It's so good to be here. I have been watching the news, and I can barely believe what we're living through, but we've been through it for a long time, and I'm very excited to talk to you about it today.
What's going on in the news? Because I've literally been buried in my studio today, and I haven't even been able to turn on the news.
Well, I think that what we're really seeing is a crack in the narrative finally, and it's really because these people have overplayed their hand. More and more information comes out. I've done many shows. You spoke about Anne. Me, you and Anne are like the three musketeers out there. We have each other's back. We share information. We've been on this a long time. Anne and I were covering the Burisma stuff, still when Donald Trump was in office, and really talking about it openly. Of course, we both got kicked off of YouTube for because of that. But I have to tell you that it's getting worse and worse. So now where we are is that in 2017, when they were going after Trump for his perfect phone call, don't forget, a lot of things he says for a reason. So, but when they were going after him in Ukraine, I kept saying something's wrong with Binderman, and remember we couldn't say Cimarella's name, and like what was that about? And all of this stuff, and it's a phone call, and Adam Schiff goes down there, reads a totally phony transcript. This is Zelensky. So you have to remember all of that in context, because the FBI, Comey, still in there, knew about the bribes that Joe Biden and his son got from the head of Burisma already before they launched the fake impeachment of Trump about Ukraine. And we had already seen Joe Biden sitting at the Council of Foreign Relations, and we'll talk about that stuff. But we had already seen him there laughing about holding back $1 billion of our money from Ukraine, from Poroshenko at the time, if they didn't fire a prosecutor that was looking into Burisma, and he had already accepted bribes from Burisma. Now we find out there's 17 recordings that the head of Burisma kept as insurance, coming back around again. And that insurance included 15 conversations with Hunter, 2 with Joe Biden. And now we're finding out that apparently they coerced somebody to pay them bribes. And then Joe Biden was instrumental in getting Devin Archer, that is Hunter's partner, that's also on the board of Burisma, and Hunter on that board, and we all know for $80,000 a month. Now Devin Archer's coming in front to be questioned tomorrow, and he's in big trouble for something else. So let's see what happens there. But it's just a total mess, and everyone's pointing at this joke. It's not a joke because it's real consequences. It's Trump. But the indictment going through that with the Presidential Records Act and the Amy Barrett Jackson, which is interesting, her coming back since she persecuted Stone and other people, and the Clinton sock case and all of that. I mean, it's just so all over the place. It's unbelievable what's happening. And, Christie, you talk a lot about the world, and I do politics the most. And on my show is I kind of look at the big picture, and I always follow the money. What's scary is every day, I always tell people that on my resource page on my website, I have a lot of news outlets that are foreign. So today I was looking around, and I'm looking at India, Croatia, a couple articles from South America, different journalists that I find are pretty credible, and I follow them. The whole world right now is wondering if the war in Ukraine has something to do with Joe Biden's bribes from Ukraine. Because in Ukraine, as much as we're seeing Zelensky as the front man, the truth about Ukraine since the USSR fell is that it's run by a bunch of oligarchs that tend to have one foot in Russia and one foot in Ukraine. And those oligarchs are connected to the people that paid the bribes to Joe Biden. So we have foreign people who have stayed out of the Ukraine war. So a lot of the nations that I was reading from today, the writers that were writing and reporting, have not been involved in the conflict, not even like as much as China speaking about it, like haven't even been involved, are now questioning if the conflict in Ukraine has something to do with Joe Biden's bribes. So think about what that's doing right now on the world stage with where we are.
Yeah, I always say Ukraine is very interesting because when you look at Ukraine, the corruption, you know, Clinton and Biden, Obama and stuff, they replaced the president, and they actually put in Zelensky. And if you know who Zelensky was, if anybody understands who this guy was, he was, oh my God, he was first and foremost an actor, but he also wanted to be a musician. And he's put out some pretty disgusting videos way back when. And he's a puppet. He's a puppet for them as well. And it's the biggest money laundering scheme ever. You know, you and I talk about the industrial military complex all the time, but Ukraine specifically, I believe, is a massive payback somehow of either hush money, some type of bribery with massive amounts of billions of dollars of the American taxpayer dollars going to hush people or cover up or hide stuff. You know, we had, what was it, 36, 37 bioweapons labs in Ukraine. That's where a lot of the servers, also a lot of the data and information from the DNC was stored, was in Ukraine. By the way, there's also some of these facilities in Africa, and it's not a mistake that you're starting to see Africa come on the stage with all of a sudden with the Wagner group, right? And Russia. So it's all connected to each other. And we know that because, again, you and I both, we look at things from a bigger perspective. We follow other world leaders, countries, news, what's going on, because it's all interconnected with the United States.
Yeah, it's very dangerous what's happening right now. And now we go back to Crossfire Hurricane. So Comey is in there. He gets information from the confidential human source that Joe Biden, as vice president, and his son took bribes. This is all going on, and we know about the Maidan Revolution, and you talked about it, where the CIA, NED, other people, MI6, whoever was there, fomented a color revolution. And then Newland, Blinken, Biden, Obama, Power, all these same people that are now in power again, selected and placed there, were involved in what happened in Ukraine in 2014. So the whole idea, all I'm saying is that the American people really have to understand there is no right and left. There is no Republican and Democrat at this point. There is a uniparty that is completely bought, controlled, owned. We have a captured government that is capturing a nation with lies and propaganda and fraud. And we, the people, are in serious danger, because this is the first time I've seen, and it's been over the last 6 months. And I think that, honestly, I look at the National Endowment for Democracy and CIA and all of the color revolutions that they've been involved in, and the playbook is pretty similar to what's happening here, unfortunately. That really, should scare everyone. It's enemies foreign and domestic we should be worrying about right now, more domestic possibly. But the one thing that is happening is that for the first time I see foreign nations talking about we the people being the problem. It's one thing when they're blaming our government or our military, like you talked about. It's another thing when they're blaming the American people for allowing all of this to happen and to keep going. And I'll tell you what, there were more world leaders and newspapers all over up in arms and outraged about the indictment of Donald Trump than there were in America.
I agree with you, Mel. When I've traveled recently abroad, the consistent, and I've met with some leaders in Germany and different countries at the EU, and they've all asked me, where the heck are the American people?
Right.
We've become so lazy and complacent that there's no other way to say it. We're lazy, we're complacent. If it doesn't affect our own little personal bubble, well, everything affects our own little personal bubble. You've just been dumbed down to the fact that you don't think it does, or your focus is not where it needs to be, and that's on the sovereignty of this nation. And you're right. There's no party. Look at what happened with Schiff. If that doesn't speak volumes to you about that there's a uniparty, that there's no longer Republican or Democrat, we maybe have a handful, very small handful of strongholds who are actual true conservative and Republicans. But the rest of them are bought and paid for and sold. I mean, Schiff should have been censored, quite frankly. What he committed was fraud on the American people.
Yeah, many levels. And there's way more than that for him, too. This is the problem, too. I mean, people are exhausted. You bring up that people are definitely, I always bring up that quote from Hannah Arendt, where it's like, it wasn't the convinced Nazis or the committed communists that were the problem in Germany. It was the apathetic Germans. And that's where we are. And the scary part about being here is that there is a plan to have done this to us. I tell people a lot of times, look up Yuri Bezmenov. He did a great interview in the 80s with G. Edward Griffin, but he also wrote a book, Love Letter to the United States of America. And he's a defector from the KGB. And there was a whole plan during the Cold War to infiltrate America. I talk on my show about Operation Paperclip and other things along the way. And because we've separated the communist or the Marxist totalitarian, we've separated them out and forgotten that at the end of the day, in all of those places, it is still the billionaire, elitist, oligarch, globalists that control any one of those groups and their banking cartel partners. So right now, the American people have been propagandized into thinking that each other is their enemy. And you and I are seeing this a lot, because when I look at, it was the black, well, first it was hands up, don't shoot. So then they came, Obama and Holder and all them and Soros all brought in Black Lives Matter, based on all lies to begin with. And, but it was a plan. They were waiting for the right opportunity. Then they that went along. Then the George Floyd, they found that went along. Then during that same time, they're funding the same. Everyone's got to follow the money. The same billionaire oligarchs. You got Open Society always there, Arabella Partners, New Venture Fund. Just a whole bunch of people. Then the next one, Antifa, they're doing, and then we had the Women's March, and then we have the LGBTQ thing. And what people have to understand is it's this oligarch of billionaires that run these NGOs, and our taxpayer dollars are going through grants to these NGOs that are then organizing in a playbook, color revolution fashion, the takedown and division of America into 1,000 little pieces, so that none of us can ever unite, so that we'll never realize that we are actually on the same team in the majority. And that this is all manufactured. Because Christie, I want to talk a little bit about what you've been covering, because you and I talked about it. I called you and I said, something's going wrong, real wrong, that you had been talking about, and people aren't looking at it. I live in New York City. I just recently left and I moved to Free America. But on my way out, they are now in the middle of Midtown, right near my home. We've both been to the UN. Right near my home, near the UN, actually, there is a hotel with about 6,000 illegals. A lot of young kids walking around there do not speak English. A lot of pregnant women, and mostly fighting age and looks like gang age men. Okay, all over Manhattan. At this point, they've taken in New York City 65,000 illegals, unvetted illegals. 50% of the New York City hotel rooms have illegals in them right now, and the taxpayers are paying anywhere from $65 to $400 a night per illegal. Yep. And the scary part is the Democrat Socialists of America, which is what the Squad is, and AOC, and most of the inner city Democrats are really Democrat Socialists of America. You can just drop the Democrat because it's fake, and don't forget that in Germany it was the German Socialist Workers' Party. It's the same thing. And basically, they have been sending texts, as you warned, in droves, because those phones are coming from these NGOs, i.e. our taxpayer dollars, through grants, whatever. And they have been sending them texts asking if they're getting what they deserved. What did you believe that you were going to get? How are you feeling? How is your experience? Demand citizenship. Demand this. Are you not getting X this number if you feel that you are not getting X? And this is coming from the Democratic Socialists of America, from NGOs aligned with Open Society, NGOs aligned with the UN, NGOs aligned with Catholic Charities, La Raza, all this. And I'm telling you that they are fomenting the next uprising, and it's going to be worse, because these, like you've said, a lot of these illegals were dumped out of jails in foreign countries and put on our border, and they're in New York City and every other town, and
they're everywhere. I call it the trigger point. So they're creating what's going to be a trigger point that's going to happen. And believe me, they know the date and the time frame that they want to have this happen. And so they're building this up. They've been trained actually prior to them even coming here. They've been coached. If you think for 1 minute, America, that this wasn't a well-crafted migration from these particular countries, we know for a fact, we've uncovered, there's been advertisements from corporations and NGOs into these third world countries telling you the borders are open. This is what you need to do, XYZ. Here are the meeting points. Here's the maps. This is all treasonous acts as far as I'm concerned. This is where you need to go. And if this is clogged, you need to vent over here. Once you get to these points, we're going to give you XYZ. Then once we get you into the United States, we're going to give you XYZ and we're going to be taking care of you. And then on top of that, exactly what you're talking about, Mel, what I've been saying is that there's going to be a trigger point. There's going to be a couple of things I believe that's going to happen. And one of those is part of this plan is the indictment of President Donald J. Trump. This is part of that plan. So it's going to start escalating. You're going to see an uptick like you did the summer of chaos and stuff a few years ago. Right. So you're going to see an uptick. But then all of a sudden when this trigger point happens, they're going to alert these people. There's going to be an uprising in the street. There's going to be burning of cities again. They're going to try to engage. There's going to be the patriots who are going to get hurt. Then they're going to blend and say it's our fault to cause this new revolution, so to speak. So then they're going to usher in, Mel, what I believe, a couple things. The WHO, because under the WHO treaty that they're signing and under the United Nations that I was privy to in February and then also in Vienna, and then I'm going next week back to the UN, they're finalizing their little plan with the law, the legality part of it, with, I believe, an unconstitutional treaty. They're going to be able to say now the United Nations or under the WHO is going to be able to say this is a massive pandemic, which is chaos, right? They're going to be able to usher in, I believe, what they did in Canada, the blue hats. What did they say? And you heard the mayor 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we're bringing in peacekeeping forces. And also, by the way, Mel, they're already deputizing and allowing illegals to become sheriffs and police officers in the democratic states. So America, we are going to be attacked from within. This is a masterful plan. And lastly, I want to say, Mel, because I know you know about this too, it's not a coincidence or a mistake that you had 60,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate go missing. That was an internal job done. You can't just, there's a lot of protocols that go along with this type of supplies that you're transporting. And so we already know that there's sleeper cells. Think about the tunnel in December that we uncovered. Why did Biden's administration have scientists in there? They were covering up. They got exposed because that tunnel was accidentally found. What were they sneaking into the country, let alone out of the country? But I'm thinking sneaking in. And you couple that with all the terrorists that we know are already here. We're in deep, deep doo-doo. But there is hope for America, but it's running out.
Yeah, but we have to be really cognizant. And the scary part this time is that they've sent these illegals all over the country strategically. I had on Michael Yan, and he was showing, he had a map that he had sent me, and it was showing where they were going. First of all, they are going into very heavily red areas, as you would expect. But I think that this is more for what you're saying, for a revolution type thing, and then to turn it around and then have some kind of martial law to stop the 2024 election even, because then they can do that. The problem is that we, the people, are sitting here, and it's like, I keep saying, it's like a train, like when you wait for a train on the Long Island Railroad, there's just a, like a bench and no lights, and you're just hoping that the train's going to come, and you see it and a light in the distance, and it's coming. It just can't hear it. It's far away, but it's coming, and you just feel like, okay, thank God it's coming. For me, I feel like that train that's coming is this one party rule, which is what they want. And that one party, these useful idiots in the Democratic Party that are still stuck in their hatred of Donald Trump or their hatred of the MAGA Republicans or whatever they are falling for, they don't realize it's not going to be the Democratic Party. The party that will take over if in 2024 they steal the election across the board again, will be a globalist, elitist, billionaire-run, totalitarian, top-down government like the Bolshevik Revolution. And the people that are right now fighting all of us, and that will go out and organize this, and that work for all of the Open Society Foundation groups and the UN and all that, and think that they, no matter by any means necessary, that they'll destroy Trump and 80 million Americans, because there are many people on the other side, and I have to say this, and it's true, that would be just fine if you and I were put into a re-education camp, never to be seen again. And that is true. I see it on Twitter. I was kicked off there. I never got back my original one, but I started a new one at MelK Show, which has no "the." But I just wanted to see what's going on there. There is a good chunk of society, and they include Rachel Maddow and Jake Tapper and all the people, Joy Reid and Nicole Wallace. these people would love to see 80 million people go to jail and be stuck there. And that is the truth. And they don't just want Donald Trump. They want as many of us as possible.
The resistance.
Yeah,
They
so
want the
it's really, really important because, we have to also remember that they are going to infiltrate. They're going to try to trigger us, but we can't sit like sitting ducks. So what do you make of that, Christie? Because you do tactical training and all of that, and you know that they're doing this. So what are your thoughts?
To thwart something that's coming, that that's imminent, right? You have to flush it. So you have to flush something out. So once you flush it, if you can get ahead of the game and be on the offense instead of on the defense, and you flush it and you expose it. But the problem, Mel, is, and we've talked about this numerous times, the American people, unfortunately, they are still I think more than half the population, they're still sleeping. They're so busy going about, the ones that are brainwashed and they don't think that this is ever going to happen, conspiracy, the Democrats, socialists, whatever. You can't change that. But the patriots out there, people who still believe in the Constitution, believe in freedom and liberty, which there's more of us than them. It's proven that the United States is mostly red still, but nobody wants to engage. And there's three things, and we keep saying this again and again and again. You have to have strategic coordination, right? That's what Action Across America is actually going to be about, strategic coordination.
Right.
You have to have an active civilian population, army, so to speak, warriors who are willing to understand what roles they need to play and what they need to do when these certain trigger points happen. So I always say in the military, you have a trigger point. That trigger equals this kind of action response, which is a response. So we have to train America that when you see this happen, this is the why, but now this is what your reaction needs to be, and it needs to be immediate. So if we have a very strategic plan in place, and there's millions of us, there's more of us than them, and we're beating to one heartbeat, one breath, then that's the game changer that we need. But we've been squandering our time for the last 2.5, 3 years, and they've been well organized for decades. I look at, I think at the last Reawaken America tour, I had my map up because I kind of shifted. I'm like, I'm not playing the video of the human trafficking. That's horrific. But the bottom line is this: we're being surrounded by enemies inside and out. And when you look at the map of the infiltration of the cartels, and when I say, the reason why I'm talking about cartels so much, Mel, is because, as you know, the cartels are owned and operated. They don't operate without somebody directing them. And it's not who you think it is. They don't have permission to do anything outside of the direction of the CIA. I want people to hear me. The operations that happen within the TCOs are directed from our own CIA. And that is, you can go back generations to find that, decades to figure this out. Yeah. So they're an exterior arm of our own agencies. So they have strongholds all over the United States of America. Well, who do you think they control? All of the human trafficked victims that they're bringing into the United States, which are millions and millions. Think about that. I believe it's somewhere around the 15 to 18 million that have actually infiltrated into our country, Mel. That's quite the army against us.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have to understand also, this is a worldwide thing. This immigration nonsense, illegal immigration. And we have to start calling it what it is again. And here's the truth. They're using these people as weapons. There's nothing humanitarian about it. This is how I judge now. I've had some people say, oh, you're hard. They don't have what we have. They deserve to be here. Blah, blah. It's like, that's not the point. They're using these people as weapons. It's not humanitarian what's happening. I see little kids, 7, 8 years old, running around New York City by themselves right now in like little packs with some girls that look like they're, 15, 16, that might or might not be relatives, hanging out on the corners in Midtown Manhattan with nothing to do. And this is all over the world, all over the country. And what's interesting, what you said, and this is why I always tell people to look up color revolutions and remember, it's not they created the term conspiracy theory because they put out a fraudulent report called the Warren.
Who they are.
That's the CIA. Yes. And the CIA put out a report called the Warren Report, a total fraud, everyone involved, a fraud. Ford, who became the unelected president, fraud, all of them frauds. And the truth of the matter is that they kept covering it up, which became another cover up on another cover up. RFK, JFK, MLK. We've got color revolutions all over the world, and unfortunately, we the people, it's our taxpayer dollars paying for it a little bit, because there's a lot of black ops that you know nothing about. So every single war, including this one in Ukraine, money's going here, money's going there, and now we're talking about billions of dollars in black ops finances. And that's why, one of the big reasons that they had to get rid of Donald Trump more than anything else, and I think Tucker was alluding to it a little bit on his third broadcast on Twitter, is that Trump was going to audit the Pentagon. And Trump and General Flynn was going to run the audit of the Pentagon and the military-industrial complex. General Flynn, who served proudly, by the way, was a Democrat, was hired twice by Obama, had a big problem with something that we both talk about, the military-industrial complex, but also where all the money's going. Because I'll tell you what, and people should know this, and this is exactly where we're headed if we don't stand up and realize that there are not two sides. There is not a Republican and Democrat. There is not a left and right. I think Win Red is as bad as Act Blue.
Absolutely.
I do not believe any of this. All of that money should be completely illegal to put into our elections. Every election should be, every candidate raises the money themselves and through their own campaign, and they team up with other people and they do a fundraising together. But once the corporations and the PACs and either side, RNC, DNC, get involved, it is a selection, it is a lie, and the money is the problem, because that money is coming from the oligarch billionaire globalists that run the public-private partnership that has usurped our nation. And these are the same people that are making money off of this, because, Christie, they never did this for the homeless. Did they ever get the homeless that could have been saved, could have had a hand up before they descended into where they are? There's many homeless people that could have just gotten a hotel room for a few months, had to enroll in recovery, had to enroll in some kind of working, had to do this. That has always been an option and a solution. It was never, ever proposed, because homelessness is big business for NGOs and the government.
Well, illegal immigration is big business for the NGOs. They're as corrupt as the day is long. I mean, every Catholic charities, Methodist, Christian charities, the United Way, American Red Cross, the Salvation Army. If you're putting your money in there, you need to run away really quick. And you know what? I can talk to the government contracting aspect of it, because I was a government contractor, and I will tell you right now, I mean, we weren't corrupt, but you want to talk about the biggest money laundering scheme in history? You've got these big corporations who have contracted with the federal government, and it's nothing but a cycle. I call it the hamster wheel. It's nothing but a cycle of money laundering for contracts for pay for play. Look at Halliburton. I could BlackRock. I could go Vanguard. I could go down the list. And these people are the ones who stay in control, and then they do allow other little companies to come in, and they get the crumbs, I call it, right? The crumbs. And even sometimes those crumbs can be smaller. They can be pretty decent, but it's corrupt. And I'm so glad you brought up something, because I really want to talk about this. I thought this was interesting. I was watching JFK the other night.
The movie?
Yeah, with Kevin Costner. Brilliant.
It'll open your eyes. And that book, Garrison's book, is everyone should go get it right now.
They need to. It's brilliant. The first coup d'etat on American soil, honestly, was that. But there was I was listening intently for the first, because I've watched it numerous times, but now I have a different lens, and I'm fighting. And I was watching this movie, and there's a couple things that really stood out to me. One of them was this phrase, and it was so poignant to how they took over back then. Instilling a new government. For the first time in history, they were instilling a new government. What was that government? Well, that was the communist, Marxist government. They handpicked it, the Bay of Pigs and all that stuff, because you really have to understand the political climate back then, and the why and the how and what they were doing with the war. And again, same thing was reminiscent to what's going on with Ukraine, right? It's like so parallel right now. But they instilled and made it known right then and there that now these are the power. We are power grab the offices, and now we're going to change the trajectory of this great nation, and we're going to control it from here on out.
Christie, this is why I love you so much. No, I mean, I love you so much for many reasons, but my last speech at Reawaken a Tour in Miami, I played from JFK, the movie, Garrison's closing arguments against Clay Clay Shaw.
Shaw.
And it did come out years later that Clay Shaw was in fact CIA, as was everyone involved. Garrison and Fletcher Prouty are heroes as far as I'm concerned. They are the only people that ever tried to go after the real murderers of JFK. But what you're talking about is really, really important. For me, the most important part of that is when Fletcher Prouty, it's played by Donald Sutherland as X, goes through exactly what happened. And he says something, and Christy, this is what I look at when I look at JFK, but also where we are. He says, and this will take us into something else we should talk about, which is, why did they kill him? Who benefited? Who benefited from covering it up? Who benefited from covering it up are the most powerful people. And then that takes me to something that is also coming out besides the bribery of Joe Biden and his family way back when he was vice president, which should leave a lot of questions about Ukraine now, Ukraine during the impeachment, and who else was being blackmailed by Ukraine, which are just oligarch billionaires that are basically playing Ukraine and Russia together. So think about that. But I'm sure you've heard that Chase, JP Morgan Chase, settled $290 million with a bunch of victims of Jeffrey Epstein to avoid going any further. That should be a big red flag. I know that emails between Jeffrey Epstein and Musk, we're talking about Musk. There's been a whole new list of a very, very rich billionaires that have been added to the list of people that are wanting to be questioned. And we really have to start paying attention to the other side, the positive side, the dismantling. And again, Christy, why the chaos? Why the cheating? Why the color revolutions? Why the open border? How much deeper is it? Is it really about what you said and what I said, which goes back to JFK, that they pulled the coup on November 22nd, 1963, and that the coup has been one cover up after another cover up, after another assassination, after another color revolution, after another thing. And then on the other side, to keep that going, they had the $500 million Jeffrey Epstein blackmail ring that also went to Maxwell and her father, with which is, I believe that the Crown and CIA and DC and City of London have all been in cahoots the whole time. I don't think there's any difference. And honestly, I think the Crown is more powerful than DC. And that would be the Crown, the people you don't know. They put the royals in front of you who are all flawed and blackmailed to high holy heaven. And at the same time, there are a lot of people behind the scenes, because I always remind people, the only empire that never really fell, if you can't give me a date, is the British Empire. And like we're talking about this coup, during Wilson and the Council of Foreign Relations, the Fed, that's all, there's one after another. But I really do think that we have to realize that the coup of the murder of JFK is still playing out. And JFK's speech about the monolith, about infiltration instead of invasion, about, guerrillas by night instead of warriors by day, that we are under attack. And I think JFK says in that speech, that 1961 speech, he says, and you're asking me, if there is clear and present danger. And he says, there has never been more. And I believe that they murdered him because he was going to break up the CIA and the military-industrial complex. 2 days after he was murdered, Johnson signed to go into Vietnam. That was a big reason too. So, Christy, very important. And I suggest everyone go back and watch that movie, because Oliver Stone also will teach you everything you need to know about Ukraine and Ukraine on fire. So, the guy that Hollywood said was the crazy conspiracy theorist, yet he makes a movie and makes $100 million no matter what. Might have been your best friend all this time and you didn't know it.
What's interesting is most people don't know this either. The crown, the actual crown, the Queen and now King Charles, they are the largest landowners in the world. Did you know that? I'm
not surprised at all.
The largest landowners in the world. And so, we are, this is all intertwined, and people, I go back and, when I was saying about the CIA and how much control the CIA has, and you're right, I believe not only did they take out John at JFK, but they took out Bobby for the same reason, because Bobby, I believe, had private conversations with his brother. And I think that they really did understand exactly what was getting ready to happen. And so, they used the mob, and, which is all part of the whole thing was.
They are the mob.
They are the mob, right? And
Yeah.
so, and I think, Donald Trump, and this isn't political for me, but I will tell you, I think Donald Trump is the JFK of our time. He understood, and I say this a lot, and I could be wrong. And I've met Donald Trump a couple times. I don't really know him very well, but I've been in the same room with the man several times, like you have. But people forget something about Donald Trump. Donald Trump was an insider, and you know this because you're a New Yorker. Donald Trump was an insider in the billionaires club, the big boys club, the private club, the elite club for years. It wasn't no mistake that Oprah Winfrey and all of the Hillary Clinton and all of these people, Epstein and all of them pandered to Donald Trump because he was a billionaire and he gave a lot and did a lot for their causes.
Right.
I believe what happened, something shifted in Donald Trump. And first and foremost, I believe God got a hold of his heart a little bit.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I think he finally saw the evil in the plans because he was privy to the honeypot inside the honeycomb. Mm-hmm. And I think he probably took a step back and he realized, holy crap, this is evil. Yeah. I need to do something. And I think that might have been, and I could be wrong, and I'd really like to ask him this question. So if you ever get a chance, ask him this question for me. Okay. I would like to know if that was the reason why he decided to step away from his cushy little life and run for office, because he was like, you know what? I can actually stop. I think I can stop these people. I have enough money. They can't buy me. I know the inside workings of what they're getting ready to do. And I think, honestly, Mel, that's why they hate him so freaking much.
Yeah. I mean, his real enemies are not in America. His real enemies are globalists. And I mean, some of them are in America, Larry Fink and George Soros, of course, the entire weather underground apparatus that runs our Ivy League, poison Ivy Leagues, that brought Obama to the front, the Clintons. But the truth is, the Clintons were at his wedding, by the way, folks. The truth is that I was in Hollywood for 17 years. For 15 of those years, Donald Trump had a top 5 TV show on NBC, on primetime NBC. And I went to, I was lucky enough to work in Hollywood because 95% of people don't. And I was blessed to have been able to had a career there. And I'll tell you, I went to the Oscars and the Golden Globes and the Emmys and everything. And if Donald Trump showed up, there was a line of people and you've all known their names. So don't even tell me that Hollywood didn't count to kiss his butt, just like everyone else, just like all the billionaires in New York and all the NGOs and all the philanthropists. He gave away tons of money. The unique thing with me is that when I was younger, and I was early on, I was in college, I worked at Mar-a-Lago briefly as a concierge at the front desk. And I'll tell you, people that work for him love him. Okay. I'm talking, he knew the gardener, the youngest gardener that never came near the front of the house. He knew their name, when their birthday was. If he saw them, called them by their name. Everyone from the maids to the head of of guest services to, the valets, everyone loved this guy. And he would look you in the eye. He would pull in like a valet if he was redoing something in the dining room, and he'd want their opinion on it. He treated everyone very much like he didn't care. And I know that this is like this on his sites, when he'd go to sites with his hard hat and stuff, that he'd talk to everyone. He knew all their names. That is the one thing. We've never seen anyone that ever worked for him other than these people after he went into the White House that were all, I honestly believe, Pence, Pompeo, Ryan, a lot of the people that looked like they were on Donald Trump's side were never on Donald Trump's side.
Oh, no, they were working totally against him.
Right.
They needed to discredit him. So they find these Stormy Daniels people who will pander for anything to sell out for money in a few minutes, 5 minutes of fame. Right. And that's exactly what they've done.
Right. And if you go down to Mar-a-Lago or any of his places, his winery, any of his hotels, first of all, they're all incredible, first and foremost. And second of all, you ask anyone what they think of Don, you would think that there would be all these, suits, because that's the big thing, to sue your employer, all of that. No. And even at Mar-a-Lago, because I live down here, my parents have been here for 30 years. I'll tell you, these people, Mar-a-Lago's, I believe, only open to the public or to guests during season here. And that's about 6 months or so. These people come back every year for 20 years. They're family, and he treats them like family. When I worked there, they had a weekend where I got to bring my grandma and my parents to have brunch at Mar-a-Lago. All the workers did. That doesn't happen other places. So,
Yeah.
really, the whole story of Trump is a lie. I always say, like, that's that line. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing people he didn't exist. I always say the greatest trick Trump ever pulled was convincing people he's not brilliant. So, and that he doesn't know what he's doing.
No, he knows exactly what he's doing. But what's really interesting, Mel, and you can attest to this. I mean, I've been in this freedom movement. I mean, like I said, you Hollywood, me DC, but we both share a common bond, and that's freedom and liberty and the Constitution, and protect and defend what we can to our last dying breath. And so when we got catapulted into this, me 4 years ago, and you probably 4 years ago or so, we've been attacked, just like Donald Trump. We've had the worst articles written up about us. I've been called, I know you've been called everything under the sun, trying to discredit us, ruin our reputation, make things have been even made up, about me that I haven't even done, you've done. But what's really sad, even within this movement, I just got, and I don't even give people my breath anymore. I'm not going to defend myself. I don't give a crap. And people in this movement who know me, if they believe that garbage, then they don't really know me, and I don't have any time for them anyway. Same thing with you. And it's like, but people in our own movement, they're grifters. They're in it for the wrong reasons. They say they're in it for the right reasons. But I always say this, just like Donald Trump, when we're being attacked so viciously inside and outside of our camps, we are right on target. We are the individuals who are really standing for truth and justice and freedom. And those are the individuals that actually, America, I'm talking to you directly right now. Those are the individuals you actually need to get behind, because if they're not defending and they're not worrying about it, and they're just going and they're fighting in the trenches like Donald Trump, like Mel K, don't listen to the lies and the propaganda, because that's what it is. They're trying to discredit us, derail us, because we are actually over the top and trying to save this great country. And time and time again in history, those individuals who have really been fighting the hardest, they get hit the hardest.
Yeah. And you have to be discerning. You have to trust yourself before you trust anyone else. That's why on the MelKshow.com, I have a resource page where you can look up literally anything. I have all the WikiLeaks. I have all the FBI links to their D-class and the fault. I have, all Cash's stuff from Durham. Like, there's just so many things there. You can look up all NGOs. You can follow the money. You have to have faith in yourself first, and like, the propaganda is coming from all sides. A lot of people, I always say a lot of times in my speeches, if you're being propagandized, it doesn't work. But the problem is the propaganda is coming in all different ways. It's been so perfected over the last 50 years, if not from the beginning of time. But back to just, there's so much out there that you really have to cut through. And it is hard, I guess, to a certain extent, but over time it is proving who's really trying to, because when I'm wrong, I'll admit I'm wrong. And I was wrong I believed for a long time in things because I didn't know any better. I came from Hollywood. I came out maybe when I left about 7-8 years ago, because I started talking about the sexualization of children, the pedophile agenda, me and Roseanne Barr and Kathy O'Brien, and there's certain people that were very early on saying, this is where this is going, this is bad. And I was talking about it from my own experience. I had started knowing about Epstein 2 decades ago. So for me, I was always surprised. But when I started doing this and then doing more and more, because I was a historical screenwriter, so I'm really into history. But when I started digging into what was happening with Russiagate and this and that, and then there were these drops and this plan, and people are thinking this. I didn't know. I still hope a lot of things that I can't prove are true, but I also believe that if I can't prove them, then I don't want to be associated with it unless I can prove it. And everyone should feel that way, because everyone right now should realize there is no journalism. The entire mainstream media is really the intelligence agencies. Okay. And they are propagandizing you. Like Colby, that ran the CIA, another one, said, when everything the American people believe is false, we've done our job. That was the head of the CIA. And people talk about Mockingbird media. There is no Mockingbird media. That is the media. And when they're hiring Clapper and McCabe and Comey and Brennan as journalists, and then everyone thinks Vika Brzezinski, her father, is the architect of the nightmare that we're in around the world. Her father wrote with Kissinger and for Rockefeller, the entire 100-year plan that is imploding in front of us. Brzezinski Her father is as deep. If you think Kissinger's bad, you got to check out Mika's father. But also, her brother is one of the heads of Atlantic Council. The other brother is the ambassador to Poland. I mean, like, you have to understand, it is such a swamp, our media, and it goes worse and worse. Nicole Wallace worked for Cheney in the first Bush.
Yeah, if you start really putting this little what do they call it, the plan, you put people, ancestry. So it's kind of like ancestry though, but you start putting on who's married to who and who's with what and what their positions are. It's I call it the great spider web. It's so interconnected. It's insane. And they
all want to be, and the big golden egg in the media is getting invited into the Council of Foreign Relations, which of course is the deep state front group above all else, or many of them. And again,
in the last 3 minutes that we have, is there anything in particular that you want to talk about? Tell the audience what's next for you. I know we're going to be doing some of the Action America. You've got a lot. You got to. I think I won't say it if you don't want me to, but you're writing something. So,
I'm writing a book, which is very exciting, and with an awesome guy. And it's a recovery program for American citizens. It is not partisan, because I don't believe in that right now. I think every American citizen needs to take back ownership of this nation themselves. And if you're paying for your state's taxes and your government's taxes, you own this country, and you should do that, act that way, and make sure that it's something you're proud of. On top of that, I have lots of events coming up. I'm doing events with you. I'm also going to the villages next week, which I'm excited about, because I love that age group, because, the retirees, they know history, and I can do Q&A on the most cool stuff, like JFK, like we just talked about. So I'm doing that. I'm going to a barbecue in Jupiter. I'm going to see you in Nashville. I'm going to a Juneteenth event in Grand Rapids with the Smith family. And Stella Emanuel.
Tom's going to that, isn't he? Tom Renz? He was just telling me. I was like, oh my God, that sounds like fun.
Excited. So do that. I think it's most important, Christie, and this is why I'm joining you this summer, and you always do this. It's really important that you get out there and get involved and get together with like-minded folks and have some fun. Listen, we keep all going to the drag queen story hour, going to argue at the school board, or we're going to them to protest them. How about we start doing patriotic events ourselves and invite people to get a gazebo in the middle of a park for a permit for 4 hours, and invite everyone and do a potluck, or get a local place to give the food and drink, and have it be a celebration of family. Invite retired cops and vets and everything. Do that all summer. Have potlucks and have parties, and make it about patriotism and loving God and country. Take it back. Stop going to them. That's what they want. Start going the other direction. Build America the way you want it to be. Stop worrying about what you don't want. There's so much positive we can do. And like you said earlier, Christie, when we were talking about the color revolution and the uprising that I think they're planning, you know what? We, like you said, now can stop that. You get involved. You watch Christie, so you know what to do. Get involved with your sheriff. Get involved with your group. Start a neighborhood watch. That's a patriot watch. Start a We the People group that isn't partisan, that isn't left and right, Republican, Democrat. It's all about the kids and the community and the family. If you start there, we can save this country. And I fully believe that.
100%. And I love that, right? There's more of us. We start doing patriotic events. You start drawing in the youth. You let them see the goodness of America, what built America, the backbone that built America. Right. We're fundamentally incredibly good. We're incredibly generous. Yeah. America is still the greatest nation in the world, even though they're telling you different. If it hadn't been so, why were so many people trying to break into our country to be here? It's because they understand that what we have is very fragile, though. And it is seriously on the thread and hanging by a needle right now. So we want America to stand up, speak up, get together, have some. I would love that. I don't remember the last time I had a vacation. By golly, I would like to come to. You know what? I was just thinking about, Mel. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Somewhere on the Action Across America tour.
Cool.
Let's have a Sunday, good old fashioned Sunday.
Yeah.
Chicken, barbecue. Yeah. Corn on the cob, and some good old fashioned country music. How about that?
That's what we should do. And you know what? We can also invite local American Legion and have the vets come, and
absolutely
invite people from the community. I mean, this is everyone that's watching.
Clear your calendar for Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
I'm gonna plan. We're gonna do let's plan an event for Labor Day weekend.
Do the Great American Barbecue. Do them all over the country.
Let's do it. I'm in. Let's get John Rich on the phone and he can come sing the national anthem and stuff and lead Greenland. All right. I'm holding you to it.
Okay. And everyone out there, do it in your area, do it in your neighborhood. Yep. We're gonna have 5 times as many people as the LGBTQ plus story hour coming to you, bringing their kids and feeling happy. I had parades growing up. We had town. Yeah. We had the whole town went down and
on my big wheel.
Things. It's time. Take back America.
Let's do it. I love it. All right. We're going to do that. So God bless you, Mel. Thank you so much. Great time as always. Love you, girl. See you soon. Thank you guys so much. This has been an incredible episode of On the Front Lines with Christie Hutcherson. Mel K, please, if you want to know more, at Mel K Show and Twitter, follow her. God bless you guys. And again, let's engage to take back our country. Let's sing the national anthem. Let's have barbecues. Let's gather together in the town square and do local talent. It is literally up to you how America's going to turn out. Follow us on Women Fighting for America, wffa.win. Donate, get involved. Time, talents, treasures. Until next Sunday, On the Front Lines with Christie Hutcherson.